Hi, and welcome back to the HE Enable podcast. This is the show all about sharing our experiences of disability, neurodivergence, and long-term health conditions in the UK higher education system. I'm Cath, and this week I am joined by Fay. Fay has recently graduated with her Masters in Linguistics from Oxford and is another one of my friends that I have the pleasure of interviewing for this show. Her experience spans multiple countries and academic years, so I am really excited to get this started. Hi, Faye, welcome to the show.
Hi, Cath.
Please, could you introduce yourself and share a little about your background in higher education?
Hi, I'm Fay. My name is actually Farah and India Maharani, but everybody calls me Fay. Back in Indonesia and in the UK, I'm Indonesian. And I studied the Masters for Linguistics, Philology, and Phonetics at the University of Oxford. I was a year below Cath at Oxford. I did my undergrad in France and in Indonesia. It was a double degree program, but like my entire background, I think, has been in the humanities, like linguistics and literature. I guess right now I'm doing some freelance projects as a linguist, mostly for the government of Indonesia, but also I have quite a few side projects of my own. So I guess that's it. Cool.
If you're comfortable saying, how did your disability or disabilities impact your experience of higher education?
So I have a couple of long-term mental health conditions. Like I was diagnosed with them. And I also have a mobility limitation. So I was diagnosed with anorexia nervosa. I was anorexic for quite a long time until I was about 24. Since I was 14-ish, I think. So it was very much a long-term condition. I had it for about like 10 years. And I was also diagnosed with borderline personality disorder when I was in undergrad, and also depersonalization disorder. So I wouldn't feel like I'm real, or like I wouldn't feel like I'm actually alive, or that it's actually a world that exists around me. It's quite weird, but I have that condition, and I was diagnosed with that. Um, Also, when I was at Oxford, I it was in the winter. I think I got injured in both hands. For some reason, I couldn't bend my fingers, and it happened in the span of like a week, and it was very painful, and I literally couldn't do anything with my hands for a while. I went to my GP, and I got diagnosed with repetitive strain injury. So it turns out I had overexerted my hands for too much and too long, and I sort of like abused them to the point that if I overexert myself, my hands would flare up, and I would get like inflammation in my joints, and I wouldn't be able to bend my fingers. So I have those, I guess, the my repetitive strain injury and my mental health diagnosis. And I think going back to your question of how my disability impacted my experience of higher education, I think I had an overall very stressful experience, but it wasn't stressful in terms of academics, if that makes sense. Like my problem was not so much with like concentration or like inability of keeping time or like being punctual. So, which I think things that are closely linked to the academic experience of learning things. But I think my problem it impacted my life in the sense that I had difficulties like regulating my emotions and making sure that I didn't spiral, and making sure that I did not catastrophize, that people weren't out to get me. I have a big problem with paranoia and stuff. Also, I had to get used to a whole other like healthcare system, and I had to manage that. I had to request my prescription, like my psychiatric drug prescription. I had to manage that as well. So a lot of this stress actually had to do with keeping myself alive and keeping myself functioning as like a human being. The academic part of higher education was actually quite fun. Like I learned so much, and I was doing a degree that I am genuinely very, very interested in. So I think, yeah, I think it was a very stressful time, but not in the academic sense, I guess, like in terms of keeping myself alive and keeping myself not stressed.
Mm. And I think in many ways, even if the academic, like doing the academic stuff is fine, it can always be the academics are always affected by everything else, right? Because you need to
Yeah,
like if
definitely.
for a lot of people, if you want to study, you got to be at your best. And sometimes if we can't reach our best, it can all feel like a bit of an impossible goal.
Yeah. And also like sometimes I forget that a lot of people, like other people, aren't experiencing this. Like I sometimes I forget that people aren't always afraid that someone is going to kill you, or like people when other people eat, they sort of just eat, like it's just something that comes naturally for them ever since they were little. But I have to keep going back to sort of my recovery training and think and make sure that I'm not playing games with food anymore, in that I'm not treating food as something that I'm wrestling with, or as something that I need to theorize, that it's just something I eat. And I have to make an effort to do that. While for other people, they don't have to. So I sometimes I find myself like comparing I keep comparing myself with other people, sort of like always beating myself up about the fact that, oh, other people seem to be doing fine, or like they seem to be doing very well, and I shouldn't be this stressed about these things that do not happen to other people. Like, why am I so stressed about certain things that may not even occur to most people? So I got like, yeah, in a way, I felt a bit sort of maybe not inferior, but like a bit stressed with the way I'm wired, I guess. I'm a bit like angry at myself sometimes that I have to put this much effort just to make sure that I reach baseline neutral in terms of emotions, that I have to make an effort for that. And some people don't have to make the same effort. So I feel like there's something I'm lacking.
I think it reminds me of. So I interviewed Jane, who's one of the course mates in your year.
Yeah,
I know you're a friend of mine a few
I
episodes
love
ago.
Jane.
Jane's great. And they mentioned that sometimes, like, them and other people will struggle with something that to others is as easy as breathing, is how they described it.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a perfect way to put it.
Also, my mobility limitation in my hands also stressed me out so much when I was doing my degree full time, because I couldn't even put on my clothes without crying when my hands would flare up, because it was so painful. Everything I touched would make my hands feel like they were burning, or like I was just so in pain. I cried every time I took a bath, because you have to wash yourself and you have to like move your hands all around your body to do it. And I just, yeah, and I got so jealous of people when I saw them like bend their fingers or like make a V, or because I couldn't make a V for like a long time, for like about a year. And I got so jealous looking at people like doing things quickly with their hands, and I couldn't do that. And I felt like I felt lacking in a way, in that I couldn't even do these very simple things. And it took me so much effort just to be able to pick up stuff or bend my fingers, and other people don't have to do that. Like I have to I have to do like hand exercises before I start typing, and I have to like take breaks all the time. I have to always make sure that I don't use my hands too much, and that I'm not too stressed, because stress also like, so I think triggers like the pain. I have to make sure I don't experience all of that just to be able to use my hands like other people, and it stressed me out so much.
That's really interesting, and I really want to touch on a lot of your experiences because I know that just from being your friend that you had a lot of things going on,
Yeah.
and I think it's stuff that I really want to talk about with you. Hopefully, this question will help you, yeah, explain what happened maybe a little bit more. Did you encounter any obstacles during your experience of higher education? Doesn't need to be strictly academic. Did you overcome them, and if so, how?
So I think the obstacles I encountered weren't exactly academic, in the sense that it had something to do with the things I was learning or the assignments that I was tasked with. But it had a lot to do with the fact that I was at Oxford, and I think Oxford is a very particular environment, in that you live with other students, and there's this event of a formal dinner where you go to meet other students. There's also this idea of a college where you go out and mingle with other students in very like close quarters. So I think all of that was new to me, and I found myself in a lot of social situations that I had never experienced before. Before I came to Oxford, I didn't really have a lot of instances where I had to sit and eat with other people and talk to them for an extended amount of time. But at Oxford, it's such an important part of the college experience, and you are encouraged to partake in that. So I had to learn how to sort of be normal about eating food with other people, and not feel very self-conscious about it. Because I also realized that, well, it's not a realization that I picked up at Oxford. It's something that I've realized for a while during my experience having anorexia nervosa, is that a lot of social events for adults revolve around food. Like it's such an important part of your social life as an adult, and you can't really avoid it. People would want to eat with you. It's such a normal way of socializing with people and meeting people. At first, it was really stressful because I want to meet other people. I wanted to meet other people. I wanted to mingle with other people, and I wanted to like network, I guess. I wanted to know what projects they're working on. I wanted to share my projects. But I was very uncomfortable with the idea of like eating with a lot of people. Thankfully, I managed to be more comfortable with the idea of it. A part of it is thanks to the recovery program that I went through before coming to Oxford, but also because I met a lot of very good friends who are very understanding that I have this experience of anorexia, and that I do not have the same experiences as other people when it comes to like food or eating in groups. So they were patient with me, and they explicitly told me that you don't have to finish your food, and if you want us to help you with your food, you can tell us. And if at any point during the formal you don't feel comfortable with sitting with us anymore in this context or in this environment, you can leave, and it's fine. We won't judge you for that, and we won't think that you're a bad friend for that. And what I learned from that experience is that I think it's good to be open with my diagnosis and with the condition that I know I have, to the people that are close to me, or to the people that I want to connect with, especially in terms of creating a social circle. because they're not malicious, they're there to be my friend. Like, I like to believe that most people have good intentions, and most people aren't trying to be annoying or aren't trying to be evil to me, which is also something that I need to train. But a lot of them mean well and are willing to be understanding of me, I guess. And I also found that being open with my experiences with anorexia also helps a lot with the stigma. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but I think anorexia sort of has this image of the disease of people who are not grateful. Like, why are you avoiding food? Like, it's a blessing. It's something that fuels you. And I agree with that, but also it's a disorder and it's a disease because I can't control it. I didn't develop it because I wanted to develop it. And I think a lot of images that people have when they think of anorexia are very different with who I am as a person. Like, they wouldn't typically imagine a Muslim girl from Southeast Asia as being an anorexic patient. There's this sort of like romanticized image of maybe like someone from the Western Hemisphere, someone European, someone white, a girl. There's this sort of idea that does not correspond with me. And I guess it has helped people and also myself to rethink this image that we have of the disease and actually realize that a lot of people are afflicted with this, are a lot of people are struggling with this, people from very diverse backgrounds, including my background. And I guess that's very helpful in terms of awareness. And also maybe there are other people like me or people who share my background who do not realize that they have the problems that I have. Because I also, before I got diagnosed with anorexia, I didn't think I was anorexic. I didn't even think that it was a possibility. I just felt like I wasn't comfortable with eating, and I didn't like the idea of consuming something. And only after I got diagnosed, I realized that I am actually having a problem with this, and it's okay. There are ways to help me. So I think that's an example of like an obstacle in terms of social environment that I encountered in relation to one of my mental health diagnoses. And another thing is that one of my diagnoses is borderline personality disorder, or a lot of people call it emotionally unstable personality disorder, which ties in with another one of my diagnoses, which is depersonalization disorder. And I did not know before I got diagnosed, but turns out I found out that apparently it has a bit of a stigma attached to it. A lot of people do not have very good impressions of people who are like quote unquote borderline, and they perceive or they have this pre-existing image in their minds that someone who has borderline personality disorder is someone who is very, very harmful to the people around them, someone who must be avoided at all costs, and someone that cannot be saved. It's a bit like a death sentence, like the diagnosis. I realized that people have this notion of people with borderline personality disorder, and I have found myself in social situations as well where people would talk about BPD or EUPD and talk about people who are quote unquote borderline in quite negative terms. And they didn't realize that I also have the diagnosis. I have found myself in such social situations, and I realized that people do not really have a very good impression of this diagnosis. And in those instances, I decided to come clean with them. Like, I actually have this diagnosis that you're talking about. I have firsthand experience of what it's like to go through it, what it's like to live with it. And turns out that actually became an insightful moment for all of us, I think, for both for me and also for the people I found myself with, because they realized that this diagnosis is not something that just exists in theory. Like, there are actually people who are suffering from this, who are struggling with this. And I also get to share my experience. I guess it sort of humanizes the diagnosis for them and also for me. It sort of informs them that there are actually people who are going through this, and it's also not a pleasant experience for people who are suffering with BPD and EUPD. And it's actually a manageable condition, because the people I was with, there were people who are on good terms with me. There were people who are in my social circle, and they are still in my social circle. So I guess they realized that this person that they get along with is a person who has borderline personality disorder, and they quite like her. They get along quite well with her, which shows that, like a lot of mental health conditions, like a lot of diagnoses, like a lot of disorders, it's something that can be manageable. It's not something that is completely hopeless and is like a death sentence for the people who have them. So I think those are two examples of the experiences that I had in terms of my social life at Oxford. There are also other things, like just my emotional regulation in general. Sometimes I would sort of crash out and catastrophize my situation. I could get triggered by a little stress and get very, very stressed very quickly in a very short time. And I guess the way I overcome that is by going to my psychiatrist and going to my psychologist. I guess I have a care team, and I think I'm very blessed to have had a pleasant experience with mental health professionals, and have found people who can help me, and have also found like a routine that I can go to whenever I crash out or whenever I start catastrophizing. So I make sure that I don't make extreme decisions. Yeah, I guess sort of having been told that you can do something, having been provided with a routine that you can do when you really, really need help, or when you really, really need like an emergency intervention. I think that's also important. And I guess that's how I got over a lot of my very, very depressed or very, very emotionally unstable episodes.
Mm. I think there's a lot of power in that, and like you shared a lot, been very vulnerable there. I really appreciate, and I think it really does show the power of people coming together and just kindness and acceptance winning, right?
I think it also has to do with the fact that most people don't really get to experience having relationships with people who have all sorts of like mental health conditions. Like, maybe I'm the only anorexic that a lot of people in my life know. Maybe I'm the only person who has BPD that is in the lives of the people around me. So I think it would be beneficial, it would be advantageous for everyone to be open about the mental health condition that I have, and communicate to them that I am suffering with this. I'm going through this, but I am also a person, and these mental health conditions that you read about, there are actually people who have them. And I guess it helps them be kinder about it, I guess, and be more understanding. Openness really goes a long way, I think. It's a bit hard to start the conversation, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it's, at least when I had like my personal experiences, it became the case that openness ended up becoming a lot of self-advocacy.
True.
And I think it's finding that balance, right? Where you want it to be open and it's just a part of who you are, but you don't have to repeat it so many times that it becomes exhausting, and there's a balance there.
I really like that, the part about openness being self-advocacy, because that was also something that I realized, that I was not burdening people with sharing my experience or like with telling them that I have these things. I am advocating for myself, and I am also making a way for me to be a better friend, or like to be a better person in their lives in general, to be a better student, a better supervisee, maybe if the situation calls for it. It is self-advocacy, I think, and it's not burdening people.
Yeah, and I really appreciate how vulnerable you've been with all of this, and I think your experience is super valuable. Like I don't think I've met anyone who's been anorexic in the past before. I have had some friends with borderline personality disorder, but not many. And I think because they present themselves in such different ways, like if you meet one person with a condition, you've met one person with a condition. It's so nice. And even then, if someone has a less common presentation, and maybe, they don't know that is what it is, sharing stories like this might be how we can help them, right? And that's the point of this show. I think it's wonderful.
That's also like something that I think is very important. I think that also has to do with humanizing the disorder or like the disability. A lot of disorders sort of lie in a spectrum, and you don't really like a hard and fast rule of determining how someone with a certain disorder would present themselves. People are different, and so are people with disabilities, and so are people with disorders. If you have like a bad experience, or if you have a bad opinion of someone with a certain disorder or a certain disability, that doesn't mean that it's going to always be the case with everyone with that disability. It doesn't mean that you will have the same experience all the time, or that everyone with that condition will behave the exact same way. I think that's one of the conversations that we have to encourage, and one of the things that we have to make sure everyone's aware of, that people are different, and people with disabilities and mental health disorders are still people. They're going to be different. You will have to get to know them.
That's the point of the show, right? Is I want people to show that other people aren't alone and to share their experiences. So I just want to thank you again for coming on. It's been really valuable. I just want to move on. So we've covered a lot about your experiences with anorexia and borderline personality disorder. The one thing that I remember most just about your experience of disability as an outsider when I saw you at university. I hope you don't mind me sharing this anecdote.
No, share
I
it.
used to run a lot of brunches and events in the common room, and you come in with braces on both hands, essentially.
My robot braces.
Yes, from when you had your RSI. And I remember you saying that, it got brought on by typing, you still want to type, you do really love your work. And I was wondering, obviously you probably couldn't have been typing all the time, and I don't know the answer to this question, but did you adapt your work style when it became difficult to type with your RSI, with like, I don't know, dictation software or something? Were there any adjustments that you made that particularly helped you there?
Yeah. So I have tried voice to text or like dictation softwares. I've tried built-in ones that come with my laptop. I've tried dictation services or voice to text services, but I found that they were not that helpful, because I'm a linguist and I work with a lot of languages, and it's very, very annoying to switch the languages according to the language that I'm trying to type. And sometimes they also wouldn't have the option of transcribing the thing that I want to say in the language that I want to type in. Like a lot of the softwares, they can't transcribe Indonesian, which is a big language that I work with. They most definitely do not have the dead Portuguese Creole that I was doing for my thesis. So I found that voice to text or dictation softwares were more stress to me than help. So I figured that the best way I could assist myself was to make sure that I did not overexert my hands. So I had to make sure that I adjusted my life in that I used my hands as little as I could. So, and I sort of trained myself to use my hands in a more ergonomic way. I also trained myself to ask for help. Like before I had my RSI, I would carry everything. I didn't care. If I had to carry something that was heavy, I would try my best to carry it. And I wouldn't ask for help unless I was like literally rolling down a hill or like rolling down the road. But I trained myself to ask for help. And it actually sounds a bit silly. Like why what do you mean training yourself to ask for help? But I think that was really something that I had to work on. And I had to train myself to ask people to carry things for me. I asked my friends to help me pack things when I was traveling. I asked my friends to help me carry my groceries. I asked random people on the street if I wanted to like carry a suitcase or something. And it was a very good experience. And I think it made me a better person and a better member of the society, if that makes sense. I realized that people are good. Most people are good. Most people want to help you. They do not want to see you suffer. And if you need help, most people would give you help. And that was very insightful for me, I guess. And that has helped my life in a lot of ways. And also, other than that, other than physical adjustments, other than taking my medications, other than going through my physiotherapy appointments, because I also had physiotherapy appointments in Summertown, which were very, very helpful. I also communicated it to my professor that I still prefer to type because I found that it's the best way I can work with the current project that I'm working on, which was my MPhil thesis and my entire linguistic research in general. But I ask for your understanding that I might be a bit slow or that I might need more time. And my supervisor, honestly, she's fantastic. My supervisor is Sandra Pauli. You must know her.
Great syntactician.
And yeah, great, love her. And I actually didn't tell her outright that I had this condition. She sort of like noticed it, and she said it before I asked for help. Like if you need time, if you need time, or if you need time to some time to rest, just let me know, and we can always reschedule the deadline. We can always give you a bit of time because I know you're working, because I know you mean well. I know you're trying to work as best as you can. And even after she said that, I was still trying to force myself through a lot of things. But then one time I went into one of our regular meetings very, very groggy and tired because I had been awake for around 48 hours at that time. I was pushing through a lot of things, my tutorial essays and my thesis updates. And she noticed that I was yawning and I looked tired, and she went like, "Are you okay?" And I told her that I had been awake for 48 hours. And she's like, "Don't do that. Next time, don't do that anymore. Next time, tell me if you have too many things on your plate, and we'll figure out the time. We'll figure out a better time to make it work in a way that is not harmful for you." And so I really, really appreciate that, because even if you like your supervisor that much, there's always going to be that power imbalance between you and your supervisor. It's always going to be a harder task for you to request anything to them than it is for them to request anything like from you. So it really meant a lot for me that she was the first one to bring up that topic between us, to bring up the notion or the idea that I can go to her for help, that I can ask for understanding from her. So it really meant a lot for me as a supervisor. Yeah.
It's really special when you have that, I think, especially when you get to postgraduate level. Your supervisory team can really make or break your degree.
Yeah,
And
very much.
given your circumstances, that is incredibly fortunate. I've never really met Sandra. I've been assured that she is lovely, and this adds to it. Right. Lovely. We are getting a little bit short on time, so I propose we do some rapid fires.
Oh,
So, answer this question however you please. The answer can just be no. Have you experienced any instances of your disabilities proving helpful in a higher education setting?
no, unfortunately.
That is valid. That is a valid answer. I'm not
Yeah,
like, it isn't my position to push you for a good thing.
yeah,
Sometimes things are just net bad, and we
yeah.
need to accept that that's okay.
I think the only helpful thing is that it taught me how to be more open to people.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think it taught me how to communicate, but at a very high price.
Yeah. Sometimes things just suck, but we learn to persevere, and I guess if we have to argue anything, that's a strength in itself. Right. Wonderful. Next question. So, I want to very quickly zoom out. So, at the moment, we've been talking about you and your story, and it's incredibly valid and wonderful, and I'm so grateful you came on the show. If we were to think about the bigger picture, how do you think we can improve the experience of higher education as both individuals and a society?
I think on the systemic level, I do not have a definitive answer to that, as to how we can improve higher education at a national level or at a societal level. But I think it is important for the availability of help and understanding to be explicitly communicated, if that makes sense. Because as much as it's true and as much as it's very valid to tell people that, hey, you can always ask for help, or you can always ask for understanding, you can always request adjustments, it's very when you're in the position where you have to seek it out, it's very hard to sort of bring yourself to seek it out for a lot of reasons. Maybe you don't know how to ask, maybe you're not sure if you deserve to ask for help, because I also had this feeling a lot like, oh, maybe this is just something trivial and I don't really need to ask for help for this. And it's so much easier for everyone, I think, to always communicate the fact that we have this option available. If you ever need it, it's always available for you. Because I wouldn't know that I was allowed to ask for deadline extension to my supervisor or to my tutor if I needed it. And I would have probably been too afraid to ask for it. But because I had the experience of my supervisor, someone who is higher within the scheme of power imbalances than me, who holds more power in my relationship, because I had someone with that kind of status who communicated it to me first and established the fact that here are the resources and here are the options that are available for you, because I had someone who established that fact with me. I think that was very helpful for my situation, and it rendered the environment safer and more welcoming for not just for me, but for everyone in general. I think that's one way we can improve the experience of higher education for everyone. It's just making things explicit, making sure that options are always communicated.
Mm. And I think you've hit the nail on the head there, because one adage that I hear a lot doing this work is that if you make, in many, many cases, if you make something accessible for like a particular group, you're going to make it more accessible for everyone.
Yeah, very
Especially
much.
with communication. Like, that's going to help so much if you have people who are autistic and they need clear communication. You have people with ADHD and you give them a good idea of timeframes. Like, you give ADHD as that stuff, it's really, really good for them. And communication is king, and it's also something that
Yeah.
we should, everyone should be better at. Sometimes it's hard, but we all at least need to try. Right, next question. So, coming back to, you've just finished your master's. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask just what and how you're doing nowadays and how your past experiences in higher education have affected this.
I think I'm doing quite well. I'm quite happy with myself and how my life is right now, which means a lot because I haven't been always happy with myself. But now I guess I am happy and I am proud that I've done the things that I've done. And I think my past experiences in higher education, I've certainly learned a lot, like academically, but I also think that I've developed as a person. I think I'm more mature now. I have more experiences and I've learned how to sort of accept myself that I went through the things that I went through. And I didn't live for nothing. I learned a lot from my experiences, even though they weren't all pleasant, but I got through them thanks to the people who supported me, thanks to the help that were in place, but also thanks to me because I stuck through all that. I think, yeah, I'm very, very thankful that I was fortunate enough to experience higher education, and I feel like I've developed as a person as a result from that, and I can't wait to be able to help other people with the experiences that I've gained in higher education.
Yeah, and I just want to say, like, you've been so open as well, and you've been absolutely wonderful. I don't think you know this. So when I left Oxford in my second year, you actually gave me a very, very sweet card,
Oh,
and I still have it. It's actually blue tacked to my wall.
that's so sweet. That's so sweet. Thank you so much.
Because not only, have you been very good with letting people come to you, you've been wonderful as well, and the amount of goodness that you bring to people, at least I know you. So it's been wonderful.
I'm
Right.
thankful for you too, because you were very helpful as a student rep. I think that was the title of your position, was it
Yeah,
not?
close enough. Yeah.
Yeah, the student rep for the MPhil students at Oxford. Literally everyone has been helped by you. So that's also a testament of your character, I think.
I really appreciate that. And I guess I try and help in a different way. So,
Yeah.
final question. We've discussed a lot today. There's been, we talked about multiple health conditions, not necessarily multiple degrees. We didn't particularly talk about your bachelor's, but we've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
Multiple aspects of your life, like social, academic. We've done a lot of that. If we were to take everything and kind of condense it into one message, what is like one key takeaway you would like listeners to remember from your story?
Openness and communication regarding mental health and disability are important because they humanize the people who have the disability or the mental health condition.
Mm.
I think that's the most important takeaway because a lot of mental health conditions, a lot of disabilities, they come with stigma, and a lot of people think that once you've read about a condition or once you know one person with that condition, you know everything about it. And there's no need to actually get to know the person in front of you. But people who have the disability or people who have the mental health condition, they're still people and people are different. It's always going to be a different experience. And it's always very important to get the conversation going because it helps you recognize that people are people and everyone is deserving of the same compassion and the same kindness because they're humans and they're not concepts. That disabilities and disorders are spectrums, and most of the time there are ways to manage them, there are ways to help the people who have them, and it's not a definitive sort of sentence on anything. You can't really say that because this person has this condition, you wouldn't have a good experience knowing them, that they're not going to be a good they're not going to be a good thing in your life. But yeah, but through openness and through a lot of communication, you can actually build meaningful connections and actually understand them as people
Yeah.
with their mental health conditions and with their disabilities. I think that's one thing that I would like everyone to know as someone who has been in higher education with a mental health condition and mobility limitation or disability, I guess.
Mm.
I think that's it.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. I think a lot of compassion, regardless of whether you're disabled or not, goes a long way. But
Yeah.
for people in our community, sometimes that could mean a lot more, given that the stigmas that they face either from society or themselves. No, so that's really, really valuable. Thank you. Right, we've made it to the end.
Yay, thank you so much.
You've been wonderful. Let me just close up. So, HE Enabled is the show all about sharing our experiences of disability, neurodivergence, and long term health conditions in the UK higher education system. If you have a story to share that you would like to share, I would love to hear it. So please do get in touch at henabled@gmail.com. The email is also in the show description. Faye, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.